Hey everyone, it's Ben Hard here, and in today's we're going to be talking about the all-new Ram 1500 EV because we have some huge updates for this truck. Before we get into this video though, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And if you want to see more content like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post videos every single day. Let's get into it. There has been quite a bit of information floating around in regards to the Ram 1500 EV, well, I should say leaked information. And the first big bit of news is the fact that the new Ram 1500 EV is going to utilize independent rear suspension. Now, this isn't too big of a shock because the new F-150 Lightning utilizes independent rear suspension, and that is what Ram is using to benchmark their electric truck. And on top of that, electric vehicles just do better with independent suspension. I mean, just try to think of an electric vehicle that a manufacturer makes right now that uses a solid axle. That's right, you can't think of any because when you have electric motors driving wheels, it just makes more sense to use independent suspension. And so that's why Ford did it with the Lightning, and that's why Ram will do it with this new 1500 series truck. And I wouldn't be too concerned with this because what this means for you as a truck buyer is this new Ram 1500 EV is going to be a lot more compliant compared to the truck that you can currently drive, because as great as solid axles are for off-roading, they're not as good when it comes to on-road driving because, you know, you've got the transfer of whatever happens on one side of the axle to the other with driving. So yeah, it definitely does make things a little bit bumpy, a little bit more uncomfortable. And I can say as someone who has driven several F-150 Lightnings, like driving a body-on-frame pickup truck with independent suspension is an absolute dream. Like, it is so comfortable. And obviously the new F-150 Lightning has solid payload capacity. It's mid-teens, and that's great for a half-ton truck. And so Ram will surely be able to figure out something to make it so that suspension is heavy duty enough to be able to handle, you know, stuff in the bed and then also towing things as well. The next big piece of news is the Ram 1500 EV test mules that have been seen out and about in the world and captured via photography. That is not going to be in this video because I don't want to pay some random dude $1,000 to use his crappy photo in my video. But anyways, they just look like regular 1500s. And so Ram is probably not going to do crazy styling like what Chevy has done with their new 1500 EV. Again, Ram is analyzing the market and seeing what people say, and what people have been saying in the truck world is they don't want a truck that looks crazy. They want something that looks normal, and that's why the F-150 Lightning has been so well received, and the Silverado EV, even though it's not officially out in the market, hasn't been as well received because, again, people just aren't too fond of the styling. And so, again, these are test mules, so this isn't what the final styling will ultimately be for the Ram 1500 EV. But this at least gives us an idea of the direction that Ram's going with the styling, where they want it to just look more like a normal truck rather than something that's crazy, wild, and out there. The other important thing with these test mules is the fact that these trucks are still body on frame. There aren't crazy modifications on these trucks to make it so they're unibody. Now, this is very important to mention, because the new Silverado EV is actually a unibody pickup truck, whereas the F-150 Lightning is body on frame. And this is a very important distinction to make because unibody vehicles have their pros and cons, and, you know, body on frame vehicles have their pros and cons. So typically with unibody vehicles, they're going to be a little bit more rigid, right? Because it's all one piece. And so what that means is handling is typically better with those vehicles, and you can actually make it so they ride even better because you can really guess what's going to happen when you go over a bump, because again, the structure is more rigid and everything's more uniform, so it's a lot easier to actually be able to calibrate suspension and all that. And so when it comes to just on-road ride quality, unibody vehicles typically ride better. But in my experience reviewing tons of different cars, they ride better until you go over a bump. And then it transfers through like the entire chassis of the car. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a Mercedes S-Class or, you know, a Toyota Corolla. They all do the same thing when you go over a bump, where you hit it and it's like, oh, that kind of hurts. Whereas body on frame, on the other hand, right, not nearly as rigid. But the benefit you get with body on frame is when you go over bumps and everything, first off, you don't feel it nearly as much because it's not just this straight transfer throughout the entire vehicle. But on top of that, when it comes to pickup trucks, they're able to withstand a lot more of a beating compared to a unibody vehicle, right? When you have really big stresses being put on the vehicle from towing, for example, it's not going to like crack the structure or anything like that when it's body on frame. That's why, you know, semi trucks are body on frame, and why, well, most pickup trucks are body on frame. And then on top of that, you have the ability to like take off the bed with a body on frame vehicle and put something else there, because again, it's not all one piece. Whereas if it was unibody like the Silverado EV, you have to have a specialty company come in and just like design something to work for the bed to like basically go over it or something. Just complete hassle that you don't want to deal with. So there's just a lot more utility when it comes to a body on frame pickup truck. And it looks like Ram sees that, and they see that they want to make this truck for truck people. So it looks like they're going to stick with body on frame with the design. On the surface, this all sounds like it's really good news, because Ram is doing exactly what they said they would do, and that is taking a step back, looking at what their competition is going to do so they can make sure that their truck is better than their competition, and also getting feedback from Ram owners to find out exactly what they want out of this electric pickup truck. So when they release their product, it's going to be very polished, and it's going to be something that is going to wow the world when it comes to an EV pickup truck. That being said, Ram has a huge hurdle to get over, and that hurdle is making it so that this electric pickup truck can actually be used as a pickup truck. And again, the things I mentioned already in the video kind of allude towards that. It's going to look relatively normal with the styling, so it's not going to be super flashy where, you know, I guess people are coming up to you and trying to get photographs of your truck and everything so you can't work. So like styling, right? They're taking care of that. Body on frame, so you're going to be able to do pickup truck stuff with it. So if you want to put a flatbed on it, you can. And then independent suspension, so it's going to be comfortable. So if you are hauling with this truck over long distances, it's going to be comfortable enough that it's going to work. But with EV pickup trucks, as we've seen with the F-150 Lightning, the Hummer EV, the Rivian R1T, they're great with towing when it comes to having a solid payload capacity and being able to get off the line and accelerate and, you know, keep up with a decent speed. But they're not so great when it comes to overall range. I mean, there have been so many towing tests done with the F-150 Lightning that have been posted on YouTube, and every single towing test shows that once you load that truck up, you have like less than 100 miles of range. And I'm not talking about like an insanely heavy trailer. Most of the videos that I've watched, people have been towing anywhere from like 3,000 to like 6,000 pounds, which, I mean, 6,000 pounds, for example, that's like a lightweight travel trailer. That's not an insane work truck load. But, you know, the F-150 Lightning can only handle that for, you know, 60, 70 miles. And so Ram obviously is going to have to answer this, because if they do not have an answer for this, then this is just going to be another overpriced electric truck that is, you know, something that's cool to get and to show to your neighbors, but is not cool to actually use because it is not practical whatsoever. And this really is a massive uphill battle for Ram to conquer, because they're either going to have to throw a massive battery pack in this truck or find some new battery technology to get enough range for towing, or make this thing so insanely aerodynamic that it, you know, basically mitigates all of the issues that we currently have with towing, or, you know, all of the above. But again, they've got to be careful, because if you go for like the crazy aerodynamic route, then you're going to end up with what Mercedes has with their new EQS sedan, where it is absolutely hideous. It's super aerodynamic, but it's absolutely hideous. And so it's like, who wants to buy that thing? Or if you go the massive battery pack route, that's what the Hummer EV has. And it's so heavy that like it's got decent range, but at the same time it's super heavy, and so like it's kind of like a losing battle once you go towards that bigger battery pack side of things. And then when it comes to new technology, if it works, it's great, but that's if it works, right? And so there's a lot of ifs up in the air with this whole situation. And so the only way that I see the Ram 1500 EV truly working, or just any EV truck truly working, is if they're somehow able to get these trucks up to like 800 to 1,000 miles of driving range without having any sort of load on them. So then once you load them up with stuff in the bed and with a trailer, then you're still going to have at least, 200 to 400 miles of driving range, which at that point, that's still not necessarily great when it comes to an EV because of charging times, but that is actually usable compared to, 60, 70, 80 miles, what people are getting with these F-150 Lightnings, with the Rivian R1T, so on and so forth. And so I'm not saying that Ram can't do it, but what I am saying is they have to figure out a lot to make it so this truck will actually work as a truck. That is pretty much going to sum things up for our video on the Ram 1500 EV. I want you guys to let me know what you think about this new Ram 1500 EV, and if you're considering purchasing one when it is released. If you guys are wondering when it comes to me, I'm kind of like all over the place. Like, I'm really excited for this truck to be released because I really want to see what Ram does in the EV segment with a pickup truck. But at the same time, I'm just super skeptical based on what I've seen so far, because at this point, none of these electric pickup trucks are actually trucks, right? They're just novelties. They're just these cool, fast things that happen to have truck beds, that happen to be able to tow, but you can't really do anything practically with it until we can, you know, basically tow with these trucks for hundreds of miles on a charge and be able to charge them up within 10 to 15 minutes. It just doesn't really make any sort of logical sense. And so I guess that even reiterates the argument that I said earlier in the video. Like, charge times, that's another huge issue, because if this new Ram 1500 EV has a huge battery pack, the charge times are going to be so massive. Even if the range is there, it's like, well, you got to sit here for 2 days while you wait for your battery pack to charge up so you can get to the next stop. There's just a lot that has to happen for this to actually be practical. And so, yeah, I'll see you guys.